Hello everyone, welcome to Missouri Star Live. I am Misty Doan, your host, and I am joined by Liz behind the camera here to answer any of your questions or call outs along the way. Let's see who we have tuning in with us. We have Jackie from Normandy, France, Pauline from New Hampshire, Kathy says good morning. Thank you guys so much for being here. Liz, who do you have on your end?
I've got Lila Kummerfeld says, hooray, it's Tuesday.
It is. It's a beautiful day here. I hope it's beautiful where you are.
We've got Ann from Kirbyville, Texas, and Sharon Powell says hello from Tennessee.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for being here. I have so much fun spending a little bit of time with you each week, and we've got a really great project for today. I have two of my sister-in-laws who are expecting babies very soon in the near future. And so an easy and quick gift for expecting mamas is a nursing cover. And if you have quilting cotton lying around, it's perfect to make with that. So I've actually made one with regular quilting cotton, and we made one with double gauze as well, which is really, really cool. And I'll tell you some tips and tricks for both of those. But this is a really great project. You can whip them up so fast, and you just need 3/4 yards of fabric and then some of this sew-on soft and flexible Velcro. I recommend this one because it's not quite as loud and it's much softer to the touch. So, you know, when you're dealing with babies, you don't want anything too harsh. And so you can see, even when you pull it apart, it's not quite so loud.
It is softer.
It's a lot softer. And so that's what you'll need. And we have a link in the description where you can get those supplies. Remember, everything I show you is available here at Missouri Star. So let's just dive right into it. To get started, like I said, you're going to need that 3/4 yards of fabric. So I've gone ahead and cut some here. This is this beautiful gingham. It's from Gingham Gardens by My Mind's Eye for Riley Blake. It's this really pretty print. And I think one thing you want to keep in mind when you're making these is that it's really for mama, not baby.
That's true.
So I wanted to choose something that was maybe a little bit more feminine than a baby print, but some moms are thrilled and excited about having, you know, baby prints as well. So it's just think of whoever you're giving it to and what they might like. You know, they might be into Star Wars or Harry Potter and would love a nursing cover out of that fabric. So the first thing I've done is I still have this folded in half. So this measures 3/4 of a yard is 27 inches by the width of fabric, but I'm going to fold my selvage edge together here so I can go ahead and cut off the selvage. So we're just going to have this like so. Make sure it's nice and straight. And we're going to begin by cutting off that selvage edge. There we go. And then we want to open this up, fold it again on that same side. And I'm just folding it really for ease of cutting. But if you have a nice big area and a big ruler, you can leave that open as well. And then we're going to measure over 3 inches and make a cut. And this piece that we're cutting off is to make that strap to go around the neck.
Okay.
So this should measure 3 by 27. And so that's the piece we're going to cut off, just like so. And so then this remaining piece is really what we're going to use to make the body of the cover. And we're just going to start by hemming the sides. And I want to just turn this under, each side under 1/4 inch, and then another, and press that down. I've gone ahead and started that here. Let me find my edges. You can see I've went ahead and pressed it. So I've turned it under that 1/4 inch, turned it again.
And you're just eyeballing that. You're not measuring that. It doesn't have to be super
because it's
specific.
probably a little bit, it's actually closer to 1/2 inch.
Okay.
But I just did whatever looks right to me, whatever's going to be easy in the machine. If you want it to be tiny, you can do that, but I do just eyeball it, and it works out just fine. And so we're just going to go ahead and sew straight down both sides. So I'm going to start at the top here. Sew down.
Patty Lee's wondering, do you have grips on that ruler to keep it from sliding, or what's your tip for making sure the ruler doesn't slide on you when you're cutting across that?
I will talk about that in just a second.
Okay.
Let me show you. That's a great question. So I actually sewed some of this, so now I have both sides ready to go. So we can come back to that, but let's talk a little bit about cutting management since we asked.
Yep.
So one thing that helps me is, so here's the width of fabric that we were dealing with. I just like to make sure whenever I'm lining my ruler up along the edge, I put 2 or 3 fingers on the ruler itself and a few fingers off onto either the mat or the rest of the fabric that I'm cutting. And then that helps me to just really make sure that my ruler is stable. And every once in a while, it might slip. And so what I do if that happens is I just hold my rotary cutter in place. Let's say it slips like this. I just hold my rotary cutter in place, readjust where it needs to go, make sure my hands are straight again, and then continue my cut.
Okay.
But some people, if you have a really long ruler, you can put like a hand weight at the end so that you don't have to stretch as far to make sure your ruler stays where you want it. But you just want to make sure that I usually stand to cut as well because having that leverage against the ruler makes it much easier. So that's a great question. And so now we have hemmed both sides of our piece.
Yep.
So both sides are turned under. And now we need to do the same idea with the top and bottom, but we are going to hem these just a little bit wider.
Okay.
And so let's talk about the bottom first. We don't need to do anything special there, but I did them both about 3/4 of an inch is what I was aiming for. And the reason I did this, you'll see some nursing covers where in between the straps that go around the neck, there's like a boning or a stabilizer. And so you want to make sure that you're making this hemmed section large enough where if you wanted to add that, you could. I found that it's not really necessary. It's just as easy for, Mom to peek back under that fabric. And so I opted not to put that in, but I will show you here in just a second where you would do that because it's really, really simple. And so this is actually my top edge. So I've turned this under, like I said, 3/4 of an inch. And then we're going to turn this down again and let's give it a press. Move some of this out of the way.
And as you're doing that, you're pressing especially in the corners, right?
Exactly. We want to make sure, and that is really where you want to pay close attention. You don't want your fabric to be hanging over. You want it to all line up nicely. That's how you get a really nice professional finish. And so I just like to make sure that these ends are just lined up really nice. And I always start there, and then I'm just going to press across. And you can see I really am eyeballing it. If you're worried about it, you can take your ruler and just kind of check as you go. And once I turn the second one, it ends up right about an inch, it looks like. And so I can just kind of keep checking as I go down the fabric and press that in. Again, checking that my end is going to line up nicely. Just a nice hot iron, and that looks really, really nice. So then let's talk about if you did want to add the boning, this is where you would do that.
Okay.
So you want to find the center point of your cover. And so mine is right there. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in that just for reference. So there's my center, okay? And then when I open this up, I want to measure 6 inches in both directions. And so I want a 12-inch space total. And that is the section where I would place the boning. And so you can see here, I've got 12 inches. And I would just slide this underneath and tack it down prior to stitching this closed. You could put it inside this so it's caught all the way in. And it would just slide right in there with no issues.
So I have a question, what is boning?
So boning is almost like a hard plastic, and it's just to provide shape. You would see it in, old dresses like corsets and things like that would have boning in it. It's not something that we use a lot these days, but it's essentially a plastic stabilizer. So if you have like a really heavyweight stabilizer that you might have on hand, you could also just cut, a 3/4 inch by 12-inch strip, and that will give this some body there. But like I said, I don't feel like that's a completely necessary step. I just wanted to cover it in case it's something you wanted to do.
Okay.
So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're just going to stitch this down. And I like to give this a really nice finish, so I'm actually going to stitch right along this seam, really, really close to it, and I'm going to stitch again at the top. So we've got these double
lines.
seams to really reinforce it, and it just gives it a really pretty finish. So let's go ahead and do that. And I make sure I back stitch at the beginning. Here we go, move my pin out of the way. And then again, as we're approaching the end, I want to make sure it's all lined up neatly. We don't have any hanging over. And I am going to back stitch again at the end, just to reinforce those stitches. There we go. So there's that first line of stitching. It looks really, really nice. And then we're going to start again at the top, and I'm going to do the same thing on this top edge, just to give it a really beautiful finish. Remember to back stitch again. And I should note, I am sewing this from the back side, the wrong side, so that I can make sure I'm staying right on the edge of that and that I'm catching all the layers of fabric.
That way you don't accidentally wiggle off the side.
Exactly, yep. Backstitch again. There we go. Alrighty, so now our cover is all hemmed, and I went ahead and took care of the bottom already. I did that same double stitching like I did on the top, and all we need to do is make our straps. And this is really easy. Remember, we cut that 3 by 27 inch strip off of the one edge of our fabric. And so next what we're going to go ahead and do is we want to cut off a 3 by 8 inch piece. So I'm going to measure over here 8 inches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Go ahead and make a cut. There we go. And these are going to be the 2 pieces that we need for our straps. So we're going to go ahead and iron these in half, right sides together. Just like so.
And it's neat that you've got them in the 2 sizes of straps, so you're not trying to muck with doing it right behind you.
You don't have to do anything behind your neck. It's going to be right here on the side. It makes it easy to maneuver. So we've folded that one in half. We're going to do the same thing with the longer piece. And we're going to press this all the way down. Just like so. Let me move some of this out of the way. And now we're going to take this to the machine, and both of these we're going to sew exactly the same way. We are going to start on one short side. We're going to go across and then down, and we're going to leave one end completely open so that we can turn it. So let's go ahead and sew one. And you want to back stitch here at the beginning as well. You can sew off if you'd like. I like to leave my needle down and pivot. So that's what I'm going to do. So you can see I've just made basically a big L with our stitching. Do you have any questions before I get any farther, Liz?
I think we're feeling it's really straightforward. This is kind of neat to watch it come together this quickly.
It's such an easy project. It really is so fast. And so you can see here, I just went ahead and clipped the corner of this tie. I want to make sure it has as little bulk as possible in there. So I just snipped off that little edge. Just be careful not to cut through your stitches. You don't want that to happen. And so then you can see I've done the same thing on this little one, and I have it ready to go. So let's go ahead and turn that. I like to grab a chopstick or a pencil, eraser side, and you just want to pinch the end that you have stitched across.
And I'm just going to go over some measurements for folks who are just tuning in.
Yeah, perfect.
So for this nursing cover, we started off with 3/4 of a yard, so that's 27 inches. And the first thing we did was fold that and cut off the selvages. And then from there, we cut off a 3-inch by 27-inch piece.
Strip, exactly.
And that's what we're turning into these two straps. So we cut off an 8-inch piece of that 27 inches. And that's what Misty's flipping now. And then we've got the other longer side. So those are all the measurements you need. It's nice and straightforward. Everything else is kind of eyeballed. So you can do 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch.
Yeah, I prefer to do a little bit smaller hems on the two side edges, and then those wider, nice finished hems on the top and bottom. And I think that helps with it laying nicely and making sure that it covers as well. And so I've got both of my straps here ready to go. If you wanted, you could top stitch just like we did, just to give this, a really beautiful finish all the way around, but that's totally up to you. And so now let's talk about adding these to our cover. Okay. So remember, we had made that mark in the center, and we measured over 12 inches if we were going to do the boning, and the exact same thing is what you want to follow for your straps. I like to go ahead and attach my straps first. You could do your Velcro first if you find that to be easier because you don't want the bulk. I don't find this to be a lot of bulk, and this way I know I'm going to get my Velcro on correctly. And so this was just me making sure that I don't have to rip this out later. So again, we're going to measure over 6 inches. And so looking at this, this is the side of the cover that's going to be on the right shoulder. I'm right-handed. If you're making this for someone that's right-handed, I think this is where you probably want to place the short side of your straps. And so just keep that in mind. We're going to measure over 6 inches, and then I'm going to fold under my raw edge just to make sure that I don't have any raw edges sticking up, about 1 inch. And we're going to pin this into place here. And I like it to line up pretty closely with that second line of stitching that we did, so that it will all match up. And then we can flip this over and we can pin our other strap, doing the exact same thing. This time I can just make sure it's lined up with the one we've already pinned.
Makes it nice and easy.
Exactly. And we'll go ahead and pin this one on. There we go. And so you can see I've got those two pinned to the center, 12 inches in between the two, 6 inches from your center mark in each direction. So now we're going to go ahead and do some stitching in a box shape right there to attach this. That'll make it nice and secure. We're going to do that on both points. So let's do that.
And so when you say in a box shape, we're just making a big square.
Making a big square, that's
okay.
Exactly right. And when you get started, you will want to back stitch because you don't want any of your stitches to pop out. So we'll take a few stitches forward, back up. And this is one where I do like to keep my needle down. I think it turns out really nice if we just let the box go all the way around. My needle doesn't want to stay down today though, of course, when I want it to.
That's the power of live, right?
There we go, and pivot, and one more. And then go ahead and back stitch again on that final side. So that will really lock that in. And I think you guys can see here how nicely that turns out. Make sure you get a nice shot of that. Just a simple square stitch all the way around that edge. And we're going to go ahead and do that on this other side as well.
And so you can, yes, you can absolutely do an X in the center
of
that
you
as
could.
well.
Totally.
If you want a little extra stability.
And pivot. Okay.
I'm just thinking about how fun this is to pick out fabric for the person you're making this for.
Yeah.
And to make it something that they would really enjoy, because they're likely
Exactly.
to be spending some time with it.
And it's so
And
fast.
and it's for mom,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly. And so now those are attached, and this is what I mean when I like to attach them first so I know that my Velcro is going to go in the right place. So you're going to need a 5-inch piece of that Velcro. Remember, this is the Sew On Soft and Flexible. This one that I'm using is the 5/8 inch measurement, but you could use up to an inch and it would work just fine based on the size that we've cut here. And so I like to put the grippier side on this short piece.
okay.
And the reason being, it's less likely to get caught and trapped in your hair as you're pulling it around.
Smart.
It's right here on your shoulder. You can kind of keep it under control, I guess. And so I'm going to put a pin in the middle of this just to hold it in place. We just want that just about a 1/4 inch from the top there. You can see, and I'm leaving kind of a 1/4 inch all the way around. So it gives it a really nice finish. That's why I liked this size. And then this side needs to pull around and match that. And so I know I can just fold this side down and lay my soft side on this edge. And for some reason, this just works a lot better for my brain than trying to do them separate and make sure
That they're facing the right way.
that they're facing the right way. This way I'm just like, okay, this is all going to line up, and you can test it before you take it to the machine and you know it's going to work. And so now that we have those pinned on, we are going to do the exact same idea that we did here when we attached our straps and just make a nice big box all the way around the edge of our Velcro. So let's go ahead and do that.
And I want to come back to too, you said because you're right-handed, you see putting the short strap on your right side.
Yeah.
So if you're left-handed or your recipient is left-handed,
Yeah.
you might want to go ahead and put that on the left side
Exactly.
for the same reason.
For the same reason. I think it's just nice to, to be able to have that there and your dominant hand be able to attach those straps. I mean, either way, it's not a huge deal. It's just something you might consider when you're making it. And so we're going to start here making sure our Velcro is centered. And this is one of those projects where you're going to use that back stitch quite a few times. I'm going to go ahead and slip my pin out of the way because we don't ever want to sew over a pin. There we go. Slow down as I get to that corner. Leave the needle down. And just pivot around. And you can see what I mean about it. I don't really find the bulk of the project to be in the way.
Right. And it seems like it's nice and easy to sew through that
Exactly.
Velcro too.
Exactly.
So we've got a couple questions about other materials that you can use, and we're
Sure.
about to get to one.
Yes.
So you can use
Oh,
flannel
no.
and fleece for sure. Uh-oh.
I came unthreaded.
Of course.
Of course.
One of the other things that we used and that we're going to show you, and Misty has some tips for, is using double gauze.
Yes.
And so the double gauze is super soft and it's really lightweight, so it's really great for spring, summer, that you don't have the extra weight. You can absolutely make flannel for winter, or you can probably use fleece. It's going to be a little heavier, so I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, fleece wouldn't be
Personally,
my first choice just because it is so much heavier, but I think flannel would be great for if you have winter babies.
Yep.
That's could be a great option. All right, we've got that fixed. We're rethreaded. And we're just going to finish off and back stitch again, and then we can come around and do this other side, and then I will show you some of the tips I learned working with double gauze.
Awesome.
All right. And Liz, if you have any more questions come through, just shout them out.
Okay, so we do have a couple questions, and folks are kind of, what I love about live is folks are also answering each other in the
Oh,
chats.
that's so good.
So what we are making today is a nursing cover, and we had a few nurses tune in and say, what kind of cover is this?
Oh.
Well, the breastfeeding kind of
Yes,
nursing cover.
exactly.
So this is, it starts off with 3/4 of a yard of fabric, and we've chosen fabric more for what mom might like in this particular instance than necessarily baby fabric. And while obviously you can, and lots of folks do, we're thinking like your mom might be someone who likes Harry Potter. Your mom might be someone who would love to be covered in something that she's enjoying or is looking at, and that we have a pocket here where you could put in boning, or you can just peek and see baby. But
yep, exactly.
the strap
and so you can see
comfortable.
that's really it. This just goes around and attaches there, and it provides a little bit of privacy, but it's lightweight. So it's great for new moms, and it is super, super fast to make. You can see how quickly that came together. It's really, really easy. And so like I mentioned at the beginning, I made this one out of quilting cotton, and we also made one out of double gauze. And if you're not familiar with this, it is incredibly soft, lightweight, and breathable. And so it's would be perfect if you're in a really warm weather climate, or if you have, you know, someone having summer babies and they just don't want anything too heavy over the top of them. This is a great option. I did learn some things working with the double gauze, and that is it has more bias, more stretch than traditional quilting cotton. And so let me just unroll this and show you kind of what I mean. So you can see here, you know, it comes off the bolt, and it is very flexy in both directions. You just get a lot of movement. And so initially, I just used my rotary cutter and made a cut, and then when I picked it up, it did not look straight at all. And I was like, I know I cut that straight. I had it lined up the same way I would traditionally do it with quilting cotton, and it just did not work. And so the one thing that you will want to do if you're using double gauze is pull out your scissors, and they have these great lines right on the gauze that helps hold those layers together. Just use those lines as your guideline.
Good tip.
To cut out your measurement. And other than that, it's not so much stretch that it's hard to sew. It was incredibly easy to sew. The construction was just the same. It's really just that initial cutting that was a bit more of a challenge for me, but it's not impossible by any means. And sometimes it's nice to remember, hey, we can cut with scissors. We learned this in kindergarten, right? But they have beautiful, you know, this is a great floral. There's some really cute kids prints available in the double gauze. And like I said, it is so, so soft to the touch. So I think it's a really, really good option.
And we have Shannon Fabrics is actually in our comments too. They said you can always use a simple spray starch if you'd like to stabilize.
That's a great tip. Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate that. So, but I do love how it turns out. It was just a little bit of, you know, I wasn't expecting it, I guess. And so sometimes it's nice to be reminded, oh, we have to approach these things just a little bit differently, but it doesn't mean it's any harder. And like I said, it sewed up beautifully.
So say it wasn't any more tricky to sew at all.
Nope, not at all. You know, once the cutting was done, it really stayed together nicely. You know, you can do all your folding and pressing and stitching just like you would with your traditional quilting cotton, and it looks really, really nice. So I highly recommend it. And do we have any other questions before we finish up? All right. Well, this was a really quick and easy one. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you have a fabulous week, and we will see you next time.